This is the Bro Show. Here's Brodie.bz.
So, obviously, the A's in the postseason, it's a team accomplishment. A lot of individuals got it done collectively, but as for the stories, I mean, there are so many great individual journeys we've witnessed with this team this season. I wanted to document some of those. We'll waste no time and get right into the closer. We'll actually open with the closer in Blake Treinen, a guy who, as you mentioned before, has come full circle with this A's organization and quite honestly should be in consideration for a Cy Young Award this year.
Well, I know other organizations will probably start taking more note of players that are drafted by this organization, even though they may end up somewhere else, because to watch Treinen be drafted by this organization who started out as a starter, Washington scouted him, saw that he had a big arm and put him in the bullpen, and he took off, but they felt he couldn't pitch under pressure. But man, oh man, this dude is probably going to be in that Cy Young conversation.
Yeah.
His stuff is electric. He throws 97 to 98. His stuff is heavy and hard. And if it wasn't for that cat Sugar Diaz up in Seattle, it probably would be a lock. It would be Fireman of the Year as well. So he has been tremendous.
And that is the thing. That is the theme here. Where would the A's be without Blake Treinen? To your point, probably not finishing all those one-run games on the right side, right? This is the best team in all of baseball, the A's, this season in one-run games. And yeah, the bats are a part of that, but the closer is also a huge part of that.
33 out of 35 to be exact, my man.
Check my stats, bro. All right, let's move on to the second baseman. He's second here on our list. Where would the A's be without Jed Lowrie? Because if you would have told me back in spring training, hey, the A's will be playing September baseball and Jed will still be on the team, wouldn't be traded. Heck, August baseball with Jed Lowrie was an awesome thing. They didn't move him. They kept him because he's having a career season. So where would the A's be here without Jed Lowrie?
Out of it by the All-Star break.
Dang.
He was carrying this ball club.
First half too, yeah.
17 bombs in the first half, a career high, daily doubles. That's what he does. Hitting the third hole and just sit there and just bang.
Yeah.
And what does he do en route to that? He gets elected to his first All-Star bid.
Right.
So it tells you how great of a player he was in the first half. And for him to be leading the league in game-winning RBIs at this point, it just tells you how good he was in the first half, because the second half he kind of slowed up a little bit. But you're talking about being clutch, a professional. You know, the guys talk about his hitting IQ and his willingness to talk about hitting. It's just rubbed off on these young guys, and you can see the way that they've taken off.
And you say he slowed down, which he has. I mean, almost not humanly possible to keep the offensive pace at which he was at the first half, right? To your point.
Oh, exactly. I mean, 162 games, and he's been healthy too, Brodie. I mean,
it's been
that's
the difference.
Something we haven't talked about. I mean, he's been out there.
Yeah.
Bob Melvin has done a great job of keeping him healthy, even though he hasn't had to give him a whole lot of time off. The times that he has, you can tell that he's benefited from it.
Yeah, fortunately, he only had just the one little injury scare, the collision with Stephen Piscotty right before the All-Star break, but didn't turn out to be a big deal at all. As for another guy that we definitely have to mention here, Jonathan Lucroy, who joined the team only 17 days before opening day. 17 days. Now, most guys came in, right, that were new to the team over the course of the winter, had a full spring training, acclimation, especially for a catcher to only have 17 days to figure this team out. I thought that's been impressive. Where would the A's be without Jonathan Lucroy?
They would be probably convincing some of these position players that they're not pitchers, because they would have been using a lot of them in games to mop up. I mean, for him to be able to put his arms around this entire pitching staff.
Yeah.
We've talked about the depth, and it's not starters, because the A's can't rave about a whole lot of success with the starters. The bullpen guys.
Right.
So guys that come in short spurts, for him to be able to put the right finger down, and these guys are not shaking their heads. Trusting them. And then on top of that, we've also talked about how potent the number 8 and number 9 hole have been in the batting order, and he hits down there.
He's no slouch with the shillelagh, if I could steal that from you.
Absolutely. And I think what he did, making an adjustment with his feet and some of his mechanics with his throwing, he took off. He threw out D. Gordon by 2 feet the other night.
Yeah.
And D. Gordon is one of the fastest runners in the game. So Daniel Minden came on and said something like, I don't want to say this in front of him, because I don't want him to get the big hit or something, but this dude is our hero.
And I can see why. Now, to your point about the stats, no catcher has thrown out more base runners in baseball than Jonathan Lucroy. Some will also tell you that he's been run on more than any other catcher in Major League Baseball, but that's beyond the point. Like, you need a pitcher to have a quick time to the plate. If you're the catcher, to throw the runner out. What it tells me that he has the ability, given the right circumstance, whether a pitch out or whether a reasonable delivery to home plate, that he's going to be able to get a runner out at second, especially. Like, he's going to limit running games, and I don't know that the A's have had a catcher that's been able to consistently do that in the last 10 years.
And it hasn't been because they've quickened their times to the plate.
Right.
I mean, I time these guys all the time.
Right.
It's the adjustments that he's been able to make. And they're aware of that. And once you start trying to get them to rush and be quicker, all it does is make them make mistakes, and they're not comfortable doing that. That's why you don't see a lot of pickoffs, because they don't want to throw. But just the communication skill, the veteran leadership that he has brought, making Bob Melvin's job so much easier. You know, he has so much respect for a guy because he played the position. He understands the magnitude and the impact that he's had. But he's a true professional. This guy hit 25 homers a couple of years in the league. So and he's still a power threat. So we know what happened with Bruce Maxwell in that situation. A lot of times that trickles down throughout the whole organization. But, man, they didn't skip a beat.
So I promise I didn't do this intentionally. It just so happens to be that Chris Davis is batting cleanup in our list of 10 different names here. Where would the A's be without KD? And as we tape this, 46 homers. He might get a couple more before this regular season is over, but 42, 43, and now 46, and he has yet to ever be a big league all-star, which baffles me.
Well, when you play in, they call a small market, he hasn't been getting the notoriety that he should.
46? Like, next year, it should already be a lock that next year he could hit no homers and he's in that midsummer class.
Well, you know, and it's probably a little bit of his fault because he's not going to blow his own horn.
Yeah.
He's told everybody.
He's not campaigning, A
lot of hitters want to get out of here. Matt Holliday came in here and got humbled as quick as Gomer Pyle up in this joint. And KD said he loves it up in here. So the A's would be kicking themselves. They should be patting themselves on the back to be giving up a backup catcher to the Milwaukee Brewers to get
Chris Davis a couple years ago. I agree.
What a trade. One of Billy Bean's most brilliant trades that he's ever made. But, man, this dude gets so hot. There are times we say, man, KD haven't hit a homer in a week. Then all of a sudden he hits 10 the next week. So this guy can get as hot as anybody in baseball.
I think we should also point out, too, that Chris Davis made the adjustment this season to being a primary DH and basically taking left field out of his game. And I don't know that a lot of big leaguers would embrace that, because there's something about playing in the field that keeps your rhythm going. He said, you know what, I'll do it. Obviously, he didn't miss a beat at all. In fact, only more homers and even a slightly better average this season. So I think that probably should be credited to him as well, too. Let's move on to number 5, and Sean Manaea, who as of right now is recovering from surgery. That is so unfortunate, because you talk about Jed Lowry carrying the first half offensively. Sean Manaea was not even the opening day starter, but he assumed the ace role for this team at some point this season, and obviously had the no-hitter against the Boston Red Sox. So where would the A's be without Sean Manaea, especially in the beginning portions of this season?
Well, we talked about Lim Hendricks probably will be in the opener of the year. He'd be in line for that award. I guess Sean Manaea would have to be the bridge recipient of this team, because once Kendall Graveman went down, and it wasn't because he was so good that he had to be the opener. It was basically a process elimination, and they didn't have anybody else.
You're saying Kendall Graveman
being the opening
day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Manaea had not pitched that well.
Right.
He didn't show he was capable of taking that role.
Right.
And once Graveman went down, he did. He excelled in it. I mean, he had a great run.
Right.
And that probably saved the A's, because had he not pitched well, there's no telling what would have happened in that bullpen.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's move on to Chad Pinder, who is number 6 on our list of where would the A's be without Chad Pinder. Now, this is a different one. Chad Pinder, not an everyday player in the starting lineup, but as we've come to know the A's, Shooty, especially through a lot of the players, through the coaching staff, they'll all tell you what an important piece he is on 2 fronts. Number 1, you can use him almost anytime, anywhere, at any position against any opponent, but the other factor is great teammate guy, great glue guy for your clubhouse. And in the course of 162, you can't have bad apples in there. So he just is a guy that holds this team together. And like I say, I mean, we're naming him with all these other regulars. I think that in itself is a testament to Chad Pinder.
Well, every man I know you have, when I can look in your bag, has a, what you call those things, a Swiss Army knife. He's the Swiss Army knife, the super utility guy, the glue in the clubhouse, that important piece. I mean, he kept the A's from going out looking for someone that could back up Marcus at shortstop, back up Chapman at short.
Played left, played first.
Played center.
Yeah.
He's played everywhere and has done it well.
Right.
And the man comes off the bench banging. I mean, the man's got tremendous amount of power.
Yeah.
And we see Chapman who wears his emotions on his sleeves. But Pinder is that quiet type leader.
You don't see it a lot. You know it's there, but you don't necessarily see it. And that's a whole different style to respect.
No question about it.
I never thought about it that way, but when you put it that way, I really agree. Let's move on to number 7, who is Mike Fiers. Where would the A's be without Mike Fiers? Now, remember back to deadline day, in the final 30 minutes, I think it was noon Pacific time was the trade deadline. Noon or 1, afternoon basically. And there were rumors out there. Mike Fiers is going to come to Oakland from Detroit. And then it somehow, some way fell through. 6 days later, that deal actually does happen. And since then, as we record this, in all of Fiers' starts, the A's have won every single game with the exception of 1. We don't know this yet. We would assume he could very well be a postseason starter, maybe the opening starter for the postseason. But he has given them a second breath of air down the stretch here in the rotation, kind of as the Ace all over again.
Well, the one guy that they needed that you would want as a guarantee to start in a playoff game, they went out and acquired him.
Yeah.
They've got a experienced veteran who's been in the playoffs, who takes the bump every 5 days, doesn't go out there and just blow gas. He can pitch a little bit. You look on his baseball card, and you see that he has experience of pitching that role. The A's didn't have that. And what that did, that afforded them the opportunity to go out and get more relief pitching.
Right.
Because, once again, had not they been able to pull that move off.
Right.
I mean, now we're talking about the next guy you're probably going to ask me about, but the A's have always done a great job of going out getting a veteran guy. And,
you peeking at my list here?
No. But I didn't want to step on this next guy's toes because he's just as important as this guy.
But, I mean, we can relate these two almost in the very same way. Now, Fiers had a track record of this season, right? Like, ever since late May, he had really turned it on. But that brings us to our number 8 guy on the list. Where would the A's be without Edwin Jackson, who they picked up at the end of June? Now, Shooty, this was only 2 weeks into the turnaround, which we have come to know at this point since, June 16th. That's kind of the tipping point for this team. But, late June, you still didn't know, is this a fluke? Is this a short-lived thing? Are the A's going to be hot for a couple weeks or a month and then that's it? But when they got Edwin Jackson, I mean, slowly but surely, that was also such a key piece for the rotation. And not to mention all the stuff I know you're going to tell me about his age, his experience, his veteran leadership.
The stabilizer. Every time we get to this time of the year, people start saying, what advantage does the other team have? Well, experience.
Yeah.
The Houston Astros have experience. The Cleveland Indians, they have experience. The New York Yankees, they have experience. The Boston Red Sox, they have experience. The Oakland A's have very little experience at all. And when you get on the big stage, the guys that have been there before, they can handle the bright lights that don't blind them. It's the kids that never seen that bright neon LED stuff flashing in your eyes.
You know what that is, LEDs?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I'm moving on up a little bit, getting away from the big, soft white bulbs.
No incandescence for you,
huh?
No. Wow. Good side note there.
He's been that psychiatrist that they need down there, that mental coach.
Yeah.
That guy that lets them know that they're not tired or hurt. They're just a little fatigued. He's been there. He's done it all. He's a gentleman. It's been a pleasure to be around him. Matter of fact, from what I was told, he was on his way out if Mingden had came back when he was supposed to, but since he had a setback, Jackson was there for another start, and he pitched his way onto the roster for the rest of the way.
And it's stuff like that. I mean, nothing against anybody, but just the timing, right, worked out so that the A's could have that look at him and say, wait a second, there's no way we can't can't not keep this guy. We got to keep him around. And just his journey, 13 different MLB teams. And I think that's part of it too, right? You know, a guy is going to come in and understands what it's like to be the new guy.
Yes.
Fit in easy. Don't tread on anybody. Kind of, just make it easy on teammates. I don't think he's made it easy on teammates. I think he's made it awesome on teammates.
Oh, he set an example. And one other thing that he gives the A's an option. If we don't like the way that Mike Fiers pitches up in the zone and they're going to Yankee Stadium and play that game,
you're in.
Edwin Jackson might be a better fit.
Yeah. All right, just a couple more here on our list. And I'm already thinking that we might omit a couple players. Maybe you have some in the back of your mind that if we don't get to them, you're already starting to see that we're 8 in here. Mm-hmm. There's only 2 left, and you might have 4 left. So let's get to the 2 that we have. Where would the A's be? Obviously, without Matt Chapman. I think this is a home run. He's hitting 9th here on our list, but I mean, just the breakout season he had really last year that was a step maybe behind where this season has been. This season has been a step up for him, just getting better and better and more confident as he goes. I think the evolution this year was his offense.
Well, bro, it's a song that goes, looking for love in all the wrong places. All you got to do is look at the corner at third base, like the corner store.
Yeah.
It typically has a lot of everything. You can find everything you need right there on the corner.
So what does that have to do with looking for love?
Well, if you want love, if you want arm strength,
you go to the hot corner.
If you want athleticism, if you want a bat on the rise, if you want a gold glove coming, if you want a handsome physical specimen with a bright future, you don't have to go over there to Safeway or Lucky's. Look right down there on the corner at third base. The young man has it all. He checks every single box. And you know what? Bob Melvin high five, slap knees, chest bump, everybody in that line last night.
But he hugged Matt Chapman. No, and I'm saying there's a certain leadership aspect of Chapman too. He's a good player. He knows he's a good player. He doesn't apologize for being a good player. And I take it back to what he did. I was going to say a couple weeks, but it was probably a couple months ago now when he told the fans at the end of an interview where Glenn and Ray or Dallas were saying goodbye to Matt Chapman. Thank you for your time. He goes, what? One more thing. Want to talk directly to the fans while I have you. We wish you'd come out and enjoy our success in person just a little bit more. Come on out. We're having a good time. We'd love to share it with you. When he addressed the fans directly and tried to, get the momentum going attendance-wise at the Coliseum, I haven't seen anything like that from the A's in all my time with them. It's a rare thing to see around sports. That just goes to show you the leadership. If he can do that with the fans, imagine all the stuff you don't see inside the clubhouse.
And it's hard to guess because, like I said, he wears his emotions on the sleeve.
He does, which I like.
Yeah.
I really, really like.
You know where he's coming from.
Yes.
I'm not a guy who likes guys that breaks up coolers and do all that dumb stuff, but I don't mind a guy showing some emotion.
Right.
For sure.
No, and I think he's a cornerstone of this team, a corner infielder being a cornerstone. Now, we're actually done with players here because number 10 on my list, where would the A's be without Bob Melvin? We could probably do a whole segment on the skipper alone, but this is an Oakland team which on opening day had the lowest payroll in all of baseball. In the last 30 years, no team with the lowest payroll on opening day has ever made the postseason, except for the 2018 Oakland A's. And to me, that goes directly to Bob Melvin, what he's been able to do in molding this group.
If the reported rumors were not fake news, they would be watching him manage the New York Yankees into the World Series. Because from what we were told is that they came looking and the A's shut the door in their face because they know how valuable he is.
This was last winter
that
the Yankees actually did go after Bob Melvin from our understanding.
And I don't think you could have a better all-around manager who can handle every situation that comes up in that clubhouse or on the field. There's no panic. There's no throwing anybody under the bus. There's not getting overzealous. There's a lot of influence from up top that I think he handles very well, because we know how Bob thinks sometimes, and sometimes it may look off the cuff, and we know it may not be the way that he may want to do it, but this is a man that is all about being about the organization. I can't say enough about Bob Melvin.
And I think to your point, the manager gets judged on two things. Well, really gets judged on one thing: what moves he makes with the team in game situations and stuff on the field, right? Like managing the lineup, managing the roster, using who, when, where, and how. But to your point, the other one that managers should be judged on, and a lot of times they're not because not everybody sees this, is how they handle the players in moments where a player is upset, a player is frustrated, a player is too confident about themselves. You know what I mean? Psychiatrist, psychologist, I don't know the exact one I'm looking for here, but that's all the stuff that Bob Melvin does behind the scenes that nobody gets to see, that we know is happening with this group, and we know is a reason for their success because he's keeping all these guys level and where they should be.
Well, they call that managing the clubhouse.
Right.
And the way that it was reported that there was some unrest, there were some guys that were a little disappointed in the way that they were being used, that were starters that now were being campaigned as relievers or openers or whatever when they started doing things a little differently.
Right.
And a couple of guys reported it, but it died out very quickly. And I think that's a reflection of the manager being able to put that crap out right away.
Right.
And I think Scott Emerson came out and reinforced a message. We've got you guys on the staff to pitch. Now, you define the role. As of right now, when we call on you, just be ready to pitch. I don't care, starter, reliever, opener, closer, bridge, whatever you.
Yeah.
When we call you, be ready to pitch.
So, I think when we look back on our list here, Blake Treinen should be in the Cy Young conversation. Chris Davis, we understand that no DH has ever won the American League Most Valuable Player, but if it were ever to happen, KD should probably be in that conversation. We talked about Matt Chapman. He's our choice for the American League Gold Glove at the third base position. And then there's Bob Melvin, who will close off this conversation with American League Manager of the Year. To me, I've been saying it all along, if the A's get in as a playoff team, and they now have, there's no way he's not the front runner for that award. I hope he wins it. I know a lot of politics happen in awards like this, but it is chosen at the end of the regular season, so I got to think he's up there on that.
Yes, and I'm going to throw two other names in there, just like you said.
Yeah.
I had two that's not on that list.
Yeah.
First of all, Matt Chapman, Marcus Semien, Jed Lowry.
So you're going here to the where would the A's be without list?
Without a couple of more, and that just tells you how good
we had to keep it at 10.
Yes,
and I came up with most of the names on the list, but even I have some ones that I want to go back on. So you go ahead, give me yours.
Like I said, Chapman, Semien, Lowry would not have had the defensive years and made the vast improvement they have.
Yes,
had it not been for Matt Olson.
Great defensive first baseman.
Gold Glove caliber, hands down for me.
Yep.
It's incredible. And the other guy, the igniter, when you get late in the year, you've had a long year somewhat, and it's kind of getting a little tired, you need a jolt of energy. The A's didn't have a center fielder. Mark Cannon was playing center field. They didn't really have a legitimate leadoff hitter. They were trying a bunch of different guys out there. Martini has done a fair job there. But what Laureano has been able to do on both sides
Absolutely.
of the ball, and just it's been infectious throughout this whole club. It seemed like it just gave them another jolt of energy. He's been able to table set. He's come up with big home runs. He's made great catches. He's made great throws. He's done it all. He's forced the issues on the bases, and that's something that they didn't have. And when you get into playoffs and you start facing these aces, they're not going to elevate for you to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So You're going to have to manufacture, and I think that he'll prove to be vital for that.
I could name a couple more. How about Stephen Piscotty?
Oh, my
whose
goodness.
bat came alive. And if we're going awards again here, I'm throwing him out there for my AL Comeback Player of the Year. Considering the unfortunate passing of his mother early in the season, he rebounded personally and professionally after that. Lou Trevino. Blake Treinen is the guy getting the saves, closing out the games, and we understand Trevino has struggled a bit more since the All-Star break, but if it wasn't for him being the setup guy before the bullpen was as deep as it is now, I don't know that the A's are in this position. So those are just two of mine, and I agree with you on Laureano and Olson especially.
That's 14
and
right
Marcus,
there. Man,
all right. Time is up. Time is up. No, but on that note, seriously, you and I could literally run down the entire roster, and that's why I wanted to do this, because great team season, but special individual season. Bob Melvin said this last night when they clinched, and this is how we'll close it. He's never enjoyed a group as much as this. I've been covering baseball for a handful of years. You've been living baseball pretty much your entire life. From what you've observed here, I'm not going to ask you if this is the best group you've ever seen, cohesive-wise, but togetherness-wise, are they up there?
Oh, man. I mean, they say it's not a bad guy in the clubhouse. We're around these guys. We see them every day.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can hear it or you can feel it.
You can sense it, absolutely.
Never out there, man.
Yeah.
So I think you have to give the A's organization a tremendous amount of credit, because when you acquire players, it's quite obvious to find the numbers and evaluate the skill set, but the most difficult part is to find out about the makeup, because now you're making an organizational decision that can affect your whole ball club by bringing one bad or one really good guy in there, and these guys have done a tremendous job of bringing good guys. So tip my hat to them as well.
Can we end it with a flex off for the camera? I'm actually, my right bicep is big. Oh, whoa. Look at the pythons on that, man. Thanks, Shooty. I really appreciate it, man.
It's been a great year, man.
You got it, man.